Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another interesting episode of the Candid Talk. As usual, my name is Evan Sokinyi. Now I'm joined here by the one and only, one of the most sought after political analysts and commentators in the country, Professor Herman Manyora. Prof, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Evan.
Yes,
Sokinyi.
definitely.
Yes.
Prof, I've seen drought actually ravaging the country, but yesterday at least people saw some sort of rain in the country, and I think the weather has a little bit changed. How do you feel about the weather?
God is trying to sympathize with us. He has been kind to us. But you know, I tell Kenyans, God will get tired of us one day. And I don't see that day being very far. God, like Museveni said, God doesn't have time to attend to stupid people. He has more important things to do.
So you think this drought that has been ravaging the country as a result
rubbish.
of...
Let me tell you, see how old I am. When I was in Form 1, perhaps I don't know that your mother was born.
Come on.
We sacrificed our meals for a week or two, I can't remember, to contribute funds to hunger in Ethiopia. And ever since then, I've not seen any change in Africa. We are just subjecting ourselves to primitive hunger and to things that people stopped facing 200, 300 years ago. Why would drought be an issue in Kenya? And look at how stupid it is. People in Nyandarua are saying, wanapatia ng'ombe maziwa ikiona maziwa inatoroka. Hata umbwa inapewa maziwa ikiona inatoroka. You give cabbage. People in Nyandarua today don't have anywhere they can sell farm produce, including tomatoes, cabbage, milk. And some Kenyans are dying of hunger. So it is just as stupid as food being in Trans Nzoia with no market for the farmers and in Turkana people dying. That's just how stupid an African can be. Just how stupid an African can be. And how stupid as Kenyans, all of us, but especially our leaders. And I'm calling the president, tell him within the 5 years you'll be president. Tuondole hii aibu. Farmers in Kitale have nowhere to sell maize now. And Kenyans are dying elsewhere. And we are begging foreigners to help us over a small thing like this. This is not something you can involve anybody. Farming in Kenya is a simple thing.
Well, there you have it from Professor Herman Manyora himself. But ladies and gentlemen, we hope that the short rains here will a little bit help salvage the situation that we are in currently. Now, Prof, getting into our discussion today, well, Sophia Wanuna had an interview with the Director of Public Prosecutions, Noordin Haji, and we've seen the woes of the former DCI boss, George Kinoti, actually rising and continuing here. Now, from the interview, I would like us to engage in some conversation here, because the interview elicited a number of questions from Kenyans. One, we note that Noordin Haji actually defended his tenure under President Uhuru Kenyatta in that particular interview. But one, I would like to ask this: is he justified to heap blames on the former boss, former DCI boss George Kinoti, of the failures of the prosecution and the entire?
I think Noordin is just a joker. I think that office was too big for him. Like I've said before, and I mean no ill to anybody. We gave ourselves very wonderful institutions with a new constitution, but we didn't have the people to put. There are no people we have put there. Noordin Haji is just a joker.
Sure.
Is that just a
How
joker?
comes the joke?
I hope someone tells him Manyora is saying you are a joker. Because, you see, Kinoti does not prosecute. There are people who investigate and present you with a file. You have the training. I hope Noordin Haji has the training to look at what the police have presented to him and arrive at a serious conclusion whether or not the investigations can sustain a charge. So what is he's a joker. What is he telling us? If you saw what Kinoti gave you, you found it fit to prosecute, what other noise are you making now? There are many files you returned as incomplete, as wanting one thing, because you have the training as a lawyer. The police may not have that training. So they bring to you what they consider a watertight case. But as a lawyer, as DPP, with your training in law, you look at some of the challenges within the fight. I know, hii nikipeleka this case will not see light. Unarudisha hao. But the ones you say tick, surely you cannot come back and say they were forced on you.
Yeah, and that is why a number of Kenyans were asking a lot of questions. Why all of a sudden review of these cases? And of course, one thing that is prominent here is that some of these high-profile cases, the most recent one being the one involving the deputy president himself, Rigathi Gachagua, of course, during one of the interviews that he had with Citizen TV's Waiga Mwaura, he said that he would present himself to court. But then we've seen the DPP call for the quashing of his case, saying here that they did not actually have evidence, and that's why that's what actually comes here. How do you charge without the evidence?
There is
without
one
attaining
simple problem Nur Haji and other Kenyans in offices, public offices, must know. When you are in a hurry to please the president and other people, you make a fool of yourself. Stop that. Yeah. You can end the charges against the DP without making a fool of yourself.
Are you therefore trying to suggest that perhaps Noordin's argument, or rather what he's doing right now, is not actually trying to please his boss?
Yes.
Because as a number of Kenyans...
That's what I'm thinking, and I can be wrong, but that's what many Kenyans think. He's not only trying to please the president and the deputy president, he's in a hurry to do so. And coming out looking very bad. You should be very careful. And he's not alone. There are many people I've noticed are in a hurry to please the president. And also the president, in his own interest, and in the interest of this country, and the interest of the constitution and of the law, must stop overzealous officers from bending over backwards to please him. He must stop. Because you can end the case against Rigathi without parading ignorance. Yeah, you don't have to parade ignorance.
No, Prof. How easy do you think it is for the office of the DPP to prosecute high-profile cases such as the one involving a deputy president? And of course, we remember back then, William Ruto had a number of cases, yet none of them saw the light of the day. He had a number of cases against him at that time, and we did not actually, and at that time, we dare say that there was that kind of bad blood between him and the president and the current president at that time, but still, those cases did not see the light of the day. So how different is that from what we are witnessing right now?
It should be very easy to prosecute them because Ruto's side was really celebrating the judiciary for pushing for the prosecution of not just high-profile cases, of prosecuting not just even the deputy president, but the president himself. That featured all the way to the Supreme Court in the BBI case. Whether or not the president, serving president, should be prosecuted. And there are many people who are excited about the idea of prosecuting the president. And you know, so it shouldn't be difficult for us to see Noordin Haji and the judiciary prosecute the DP. But where I sit, I know it's not easy. Even as they were celebrating the idea of prosecuting the president, I know it's not even easy to prosecute the deputy president. It's very awkward. And that's why I'm saying I would not mind a situation where the DPP finds a way of terminating the case against Rigathi Gachagua. I wouldn't mind, because I know it is difficult. It has a lot of awkward things surrounding it. Just like an attempt to prosecute police officers because they overstepped this and the other. It's very awkward and can actually be dangerous to the country. Yeah, it can be dangerous. So these people, they should withdraw and figure out what they stand to gain by withdrawing some of these cases. And by quickly trying to prosecute some officers like police officers. What they stand to gain by trying to lead perhaps to the prosecution of people like Kinoti and the rest. They should stop and think, because these things can be dangerous to the country. They are not things you should be in a hurry to do. Withdrawal of these cases, because what do the people think? People believe you withdraw these cases because now those people are related to the president in one way or the other. So you must handle it with caution, because like I've said many times, public affairs operate within the domain of public opinion, you know, and perception. You must navigate very carefully.
No, Prof. There is one of the DCI officers who came and said that, confessed outside there, that he was forced or rather coerced to frame the deputy president. Do you, and a number of Kenyans haven't believed what he's saying, is saying that
Those are the
perhaps
people I'm saying.
these are the people who are also
bending
being used in the
over,
process
they are
and
breaking their backs to be seen to be loyal, to please people. You don't talk like that. How can you say you are forced to frame somebody? But we also know, if you look at these cases, even if you are not a lawyer, you can see that there's a lot of substance. You may finally, eventually not prove, because you must prove beyond reasonable doubt. You may not prove that Gachagua was involved in corruption. But on the face of it, there's so much you can see. And I keep telling people in this country, our leaders and our billionaires, let them take me on. They're all thieves. None of them can prove to me the money they made is clean money. Very few, almost nobody, extremely few. The number of billionaires in this country who can table evidence of how they made their money in a clean way is thinner than a needle.
No, Prof. The Office of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations should work hand in hand with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. But then we've seen that kind of loophole. We've seen a scuffle emanating between these two offices. Do you think perhaps that is what has actually caused what? Because surely Noordin Haji was saying that he was depending on the goodwill of the DCI boss then at that time to avail those evidences.
It's not goodwill.
And he's saying right now that goodwill is not there. And by the way, there was that kind of, it tried to suggest that perhaps if at all the DCI, the former DCI boss George Kinoti made a mistake there or rather committed a crime, then perhaps
charge him,
he would be charged. Yeah,
that is dangerous. I have said that we have given ourselves institutions and offices, but we have not put there the right people. But I want to add something. We have copied institutions and offices from elsewhere, but we never bother to find how they work. So, Office of the Director, or DPP, copying from Office of the Prosecutor, ICC, copying like an idiot, like a kid, copying without knowing how they work. ODPP is supposed to be a powerful office, well-resourced, with researchers and everything, to be able to get investigations done by the investigating agencies. You cannot sit in the office of the ODPP, sit pretty and wait for a file to come. That's not what Ocampo was doing. The ICC, Office of the Prosecutor, is in Kenya now. ICC. They are gathering information and have been doing that. They are not relying on some agent to bring files to them which later they will disown. No, you must be actively involved within, of course, boundaries, because we haven't created very good boundaries between the investigator and the prosecutor. But it's up to the prosecutor. You cannot have occupied the office of DPP and your contribution at the end of it is to lament that there was no goodwill. Your contribution should have been to find out how going forward the investigator, the DCI, and the prosecutor, the ODPP, can find synergy in the interest of justice, which he has failed, and that's why I'm calling Majoka. So at the end of the day, at the end of the many years you have been Director of Public Prosecution, you are coming with lamentation. You are telling Kenyans you are relying on goodwill. How can you rely on goodwill of another institution? You find how to work with that institution so that you can pursue justice to its logical conclusion that serves the people of Kenya.
No, something that Noordin Haji also said that in fact he was trying to postulate that right now, according to him, these institutions, the government institutions, are more independent and are capable of delivering on their own, and that is why he actually dropped some of these charges, saying that perhaps there was state interference during that time. Do you buy that talk from?
I don't. Let me give you a very good example. What I'm calling laziness. In the way we think, in the way we do things. Here I am, I'm from ODPP. A murder has happened in Migori. Maybe a governor has been accused of murder. So the police are working. And I'm sitting in Nairobi waiting. But I also know a high-profile case like this can accord the investigating officers an opportunity to buy houses in Nairobi or land. I must find a way of shaping the investigations so that there is minimal temptation by the investigating officers, the police, to go at their own pace, to overlook some evidence. There's a way you can direct without interfering with their work, but there's a way you can influence within the confines of the law and the whatever regulations that there are, so that you are not just waiting for a file from Migori. You are also aware that those police officers can make money by messing the evidence, by providing weak evidence. Because otherwise the evidence that you will get then won't be able to sustain a prosecution. So you must participate in the investigations in some way, by even asking for certain things that you want them to bring within specific time frames, from specific quarters, from specific institutions, from specific persons. I'm not a trained person in that area, but I'm just trying to think. If I was Noordin Haji, there are things I wouldn't just wait for. I'll take a keen interest in how the investigations are going without interfering with the work of the investigator. Yeah. And I think that's how, I may not be sure, I'm not quite sure, but I suspect that's how the ICC, OPP, the Office of the Prosecutor works. We remember Mokano and Okambo and this Bensouda.
Yeah, and definitely, that's one number.
I don't think the Bensoudas and the Ocampos were just sitting there to wait for somebody to deliver them things that then you say they didn't have goodwill, the investigations were shoddy, they had been influenced by I don't know what. No, you must have some way. And if that way is not there in the current laws and the regulations, you must find a way, because that is your contribution. You know, people like Nur Haji must know, it's called what? Noordin Haji. They must know, if you occupy an office of DPP or any other office like the Chief Justice, and this is what Kenyans must know, when you vacate that office after your term, there must be some contribution you've made.
A contribution that can be felt by the majority.
Yes. So that the administration of justice has gained something from Noordin Haji during his tenure as ODPP, as the Director of Public Prosecution. So that the judiciary gains something from the term of Chief Justice Martha Koome. You don't just sit there and then 10 years, 5 years, you walk away lamenting. No, you make a contribution so that the administration of justice gains and becomes better by the time you leave. Yeah. And one way I must point out, so that nobody just says I'm talking, the relationship between the investigator and the prosecutor must be looked at, so that your contribution as Noordin Haji is, by the time you are leaving office, that relationship is better, has gained from your insight, from your contribution, so that the prosecutor does not just sit and wait for a file. And neither does the investigator force a weak case on the prosecutor. How does the prosecutor then ensure that what he gets is not a weak case? Unless he participates in one way or the other without interfering.
Yeah, definitely, because it's logic when you tend to think that the prosecutor can go ahead and charge somebody in court and then already at some point review and drop these charges. Already that person, some sort of damage would have been done to the reputation of that person. And of course, this person may as well decide to sue the government and will be paid using the taxpayers' money.
And you see, they said, we are going to employ lawyers so that the police don't prosecute. I've seen. I've had cases involving people around me. The police don't like that relationship. So they give you, they don't even investigate. They bring a weak file. You return it. The guy is set free.
No, Prof.
The moment we entered into this idea of the ODPP being stronger than the Director of Public Prosecution, going all the way up to the police station, up to the small courts, we needed to have established a working relationship. Fruitful. Legal, but workable. And that should be the contribution of Kinoti. That should be the contribution of Noordin Haji, not complain. No.
No. Finally, as we wind up,
Lamentation doesn't help anybody.
okay, we hope that that kind of relationship will be there. But Prof, finally, as we wind up this conversation, could you talk to us about the disbandment of the DCI Special Service Unit? And further, we've seen the prosecution of all those officers who are involved with that kind of unit. And amidst all these extrajudicial killings that we've witnessed all around and throughout the year.
There are many things, so maybe don't have time. Number one, a foreigner is an important person. An Indian is an important person. But so many Kenyans have died. Why should we concentrate on this one? Why not Musando? Why not the many people who have been murdered in this country? Why this one? Is it because he's an Indian? Is it because he's a foreigner? No, it's a very important life. But how about our lives that have been, removed and very painfully? That's the first observation. Second observation is, anytime you prosecute the police, be very careful. You prosecute the police and the police feel like you are persecuting them, and you will notice crime rate will go high. There, you can think there are only 4, but the crime rate can go very high. Number 3, when you disband SS, you must have known why it was established. And by disbanding alone, you cannot convince me you have done so much, because others have been there and disbanded before. Kwekwe and the rest were there and they were disbanded. How come after disbanding those ones, this one came up? It means somebody didn't go at the root cause of the problem. And finally, when you do something with a political motivation, it always boomerangs. It never quite works. And I would be hoping that if indeed there are crimes that have been committed by the police, we must balance between the ability of those policemen to work and do that, and the arrangement and the overall structure of the police, and in terms of command and everything. So you have to be very careful and balanced. There are certain things you can't convince somebody a policeman was able to do. And I had my son, someone telling, not my son, I think my son was telling me, the police should say no to your unlawful orders. Yes, they should say no to unlawful orders. But it's not as simple as that. And when people are forming that squad, they will be careful in who they choose. They can choose people who can do anything. So it's in short, as I wind up on that issue, this thing is bigger than we are treating it. And we must treat carefully. Because the police must never be antagonized. They must be reformed. They must follow the law. Those to be punished must be punished for the excesses. But in the process of that, we have been very, very careful. Yeah.
Now there you have it from Professor Herman Manyora himself. We are tackling very heavy issues pertaining to our security system, and of course, the relationship between the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Director of Criminal Investigations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are here always on the watch, but please do not fail to subscribe to our channel here at Herman Manyora and at Let's Talk Love KE. I've been your host, Evan Sokinyi. Till next time.